Boom! What's going on, aviators? Happy Monday! Last week, our podcast was skipped because AR8 was out of town for a week, but this week we are back in full force with new updates, developments, and tips for you, so I really hope that you find lots of value in this podcast. Stay tuned to listen to it all. So let's go over the past 2 weeks of AV Figures and what's been happening here. 2 weeks ago, we launched the AV8R Discord server, which, by the way, has been a huge success. We are almost 200 members strong, and honestly, it is everything that I wanted it to be. You know, people are buying and selling, people are talking to each other, asking for advice, giving advice, helping each other out. I'm having conversations with people. I'm actually in the Discord call very frequently, and yeah, honestly, like, I'm there more often than I am on Instagram, because this community is just really, really great. And when I talked about having that solid community last week, the AV8R Discord has really become that, and there's a lot of camaraderie at the server that truly has just been, it's been so fulfilling to see, and I'm just really happy for everything. So thank you to everybody who has been on the Discord server, and another huge thank you to the people who are going to join, because if you haven't already, I know you will. The link is in the description below. We'll also have it on our Instagram. You know, it's just everywhere. There's no excuse for you not to join, because it's a safe environment for everybody to be in AV8R. So we've also been able to get the UV printer up and running. It's actually sitting there to my right. And honestly, man, the UV printer it's been, I'm so glad to have it back, because there's so many different production things that we can be doing. There's a lot of orders that still need to be fulfilled, because there are people who had items on pre-order, but I wasn't able to ship them because the printer broke down. By the way, if I haven't already mentioned it, we're doing away with the pre-order system until we can consistently put out figures by their scheduled deadline date. So we'll only ever have figures that are in stock on the website, and we're not going to do any more pre-orders, so we don't have this problem again. So yeah, once again, we got the UV printer in like late October. It's taking me a couple weeks, but I finally gotten the alignment down across all of the different slots and all the different slides of the figure. So if you take a look over to the left, you'll be able to see some of the figures that we've been working on, and just the sheer level of alignment that we've managed to nail on those, because in the past we've had some alignment issues where there's a gap around the knees and the thighs, and even when we outsourced it to another company, they had that same issue. So we wanted to make sure that, you know, moving forward when we produce figures, we're not going to have that issue. And I think that we did a really good job nailing that alignment, so very, very, very excited. We're finally finishing up all the things that I currently owe other people, and then we can start to move into the new things. And the first thing that we're going to be releasing is printed figures from The Mandalorian. So excited for that series to come out. Ugh. I hope you guys are excited too. But we're also going to be releasing a Season 7 Ahsoka designed by Baggles for Real and printed by us. If you haven't already heard of Baggles for Real or follow him on Instagram, this guy is an incredible figure designer, and we're just incredibly honored to be able to print his stuff. So when you buy Season 7 Ahsoka, you're not only supporting this company, you're also supporting a really great designer and a really great person. So go ahead and follow Baggles for Real. I'll have a link to his Instagram in the description below. So if you're joining us on any one of our audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, you know, Spotify, SoundCloud, Anchor, welcome. And I know you can't really see the visual here that I'm picturing on the left, but you know, I'm just glad that you guys are able to listen, because a lot of the rest of this podcast is going to be very audio based. So I'm really just hoping that we can give value on both platforms, whether you're viewing it on video or just listening to it in the car or wherever you're going. So the thing that I wanted to go over today is a concept called the 12-week year. A lot of you guys have been asking in DM for more info on how to actually make those goals and set and, you know, make that progress that I talked about in the very first episode. You know, I've been getting some Instagram DMs or just messages where it's like, you know, Andrew, easier said than done. I can make these goals, but it's really hard to follow through with them. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that when you set these goals, you know, they're great and everything. You may have a solid reason why, but there's no system in place to go ahead and execute them. And that's exactly what this is. The 12-week year isn't just a book that I really like. It's also an entire system to get more done in 12 weeks than others do in 12 months. And it's not just like, oh, work 4 times as much and get it done in a fourth at a time. It really is a mindset shift and a change in the way that you think and perceive tasks and your time. So let's start with the concept of the 12-week year and what exactly it is. You see, in a 52-week year, you can set a goal on New Year's Day. Let's say you have a New Year's resolution. I want to lose weight. How much weight do you want to lose? I want to lose 20 pounds by the end of the year because I want to feel confident with my body. Great. That's a very solid why. That's a very solid goal. And then I would then ask the person, how do you plan on doing that? And the person says, well, I'll go to the gym and I'll change my diet. Great. It's a great plan. How are you going to do it? And usually when I start to try to break it down and try to find out how they're going to go about doing it, it just falls apart because there's no actual solid plan for how to execute. There's a goal, there's a number, and that's about it. The 12-week year is a way for you to consolidate your time and really set realistic deadlines. Because quite frankly, 52 weeks is a very large time frame, and honestly, there's so many things that can go wrong in that time frame. For instance, using the weight loss goal as an example, in January, gym memberships spike up, and attendance is through the roof. And then in February, gym membership drops off because life gets in the way, people get busy, and then we lose track of that goal because we have this mindset where it's like, oh, you know what? I got really busy. No worries. I still have like 50 more weeks left in the year. Or like, oh, I have 10 more months left in the year. We're fine. I'll get back on track soon. And then that mentality carries on into March, and then into April, and into May, and then June comes around, and it's like, wow, summer's around the corner. I want that beach body again. And then you start going back to the gym, and then gym memberships and attendance spike up again, and then you know, maybe you go for June and July, and then in August it drops down again. And then why is that? Because life gets busy, and there's no solid plan to execute on how to go through it all. So the idea here is that if you have this complacent mindset where it's like, I have all this time to catch up and get back on track, you start to lose track of the progress and the end goal in mind. And a lot of that comes from just the fact that it is such a long period of time. So then begs the question, what is a more realistic time frame where I can focus on these goals and achieve them and make solid progress? So then that's where the 12-week year comes into play. At the end of the year, in December, sales pick up, performance picks up for a lot of employees. Sometimes, you know, at the end of you're like rushing to improve your grades at the end of the semester or things like that, depending on what walk of life you're currently in. And that's just because the end of the year is generally a benchmark for a lot of people for how far they've come, and they don't want to say, oh, I'm in the same position as last year. They want to say, no, I've made some progress. But they, instead of doing that consistently throughout the entire year, a lot of it gets crammed into the final 2 months. So in order to counter that, that's why we have the 12-week year system, where you set a New Year's resolution every quarter, not every year, because it's much easier to see within a 3-month time horizon than it would be to see in like a year time horizon. You know, when I first started AV Figures in 2018, yeah, I didn't think that by the end of the year I would already have printed figures and like sets and stuff. But I did know that within the 3 months that I started, I was going to establish, you know, a whole bunch of decals that were going to be sold. So, and then when I got the UV printer, I didn't expect that you know, UV printing would be this lucrative, or that the printer would break down. But within 3 months, I was able to say, like, you know, I can get X amount done within 3 months. And that's why it's really important to narrow your time frame down to 3 months. Now, within 3 months, you obviously can't accomplish your life goals in 3 months. So then we have to start thinking about the 3 primary time horizons for how to actually set your goals. So this is the funnest stage of the 12-week year because you get to visualize what life is going to look like. So the 3 time horizons that you need to worry about are your long-term goals, your mid-term goals, and your short-term goals. Your long-term goals are usually 5 to 10 to 15 years in the future. What do I want my life to look like in the future? I want to be skinny, I want to be fit. Okay, or maybe I want to be running every day. I want to have a big house. I want to have X amount of income. You know, I want to have this lifestyle, and that's really good to have that long like life goal ahead of you, because those are the things that ultimately you want in life. But you know, if I were to just say something lofty like I want a gigantic house, how am I going to get there? Oh, it's just going to work. That is too vague. So that's why we break down our long-term time horizon into a mid-term time horizon, and that's going to be 3 years. So what you need to look at for your 3-year vision is, what does my life need to look like 3 years from now to be at a point where I feel like I'm on the right track to achieve my life goals? And you would start to list those things out. And then you narrow that down even further. What do I need to do within the next 3 months to make sure I am on track to meet my 3-year goal? And it's kind of like a domino effect, you know? So I'm going to go ahead and use AV Figures as the business as a whole as one of my as an example of the 12-week year. One of my life goals is to have multiple streams of income. I want to have income from all sorts of businesses, and in order to do that, I need capital, I need knowledge, I need time, and so my life goal is to have at least 5 to 10 different streams of income, maybe even more. That could be anything from e-commerce to AV Figures to real estate to investing, cryptocurrency, etc., etc. But in order for me to do that, what needs to happen within the next 3 years? Since AV Figures is currently my most profitable business, I need AV Figures to be netting, not grossing, netting at least 6 figures to put in my pocket. And that means that we have to grow a lot because we haven't even grossed 6 figures yet. We are on track to do that next year, by the way, which is really awesome. So within the next 3 years, AV Figures needs to net at least 6 figures so that I can use that money to invest in other businesses. And then within the next 3 months, in order for me to get my 3-year goal is to make sure that I stabilize my supply line, because quite frankly, the supply line has always been the weakest spot of AV Figures. You know, like, I'm always running out of stock on helmets, I'm always running out of stock on printed figures, and that's just because we're not producing enough and we're not producing consistently enough. And this also ties into the fulfillment issue, where sometimes we get orders wrong or sometimes orders take a while to ship. By the way, we have been shipping orders a lot quicker lately, so that's really awesome. So the biggest issue for me to solve within the next 3 months is to stabilize the supply line. If the supply line is stabilized, then I can start to turn more of a profit, and I can invest in things like plastic injected helmets, pad printed helmets, other accessories and things like that, and we can start to move into the scaling aspect of AV Figures, where we're earning more and more money off of something aside from products. I do have a business plan that I'm going to be going over in another podcast episode, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, so in the 12-week year, what needs to happen in AV Figures so I'm on track for my 3-year goal? So I need to make sure that I stabilize the supply line, and it's a domino effect from there, because then it'll enable me to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And then within 3 years, I'll be able to say AV Figures nets 6 figures into my pocket. And my phone just went off, sorry. So when doing your goal setting, it's really important to make sure that you have your why centered. A lot of people struggle with the idea of setting goals because it's not compelling enough. Your why and your goals need to be so compelling and so meaningful to you that on the days where you just don't want to get up and you don't want to work, or you're just dead tired and you'd rather go to bed, or you'd rather go out, hang out, or watch TV or something, these goals just have to be so compelling that it gets you off your butt and gets you moving again. So in order to do that kind of thing, what I usually have people ask themselves is, why is this goal important to you? And more importantly, what is going to change when you accomplish this goal? Because if you want to have, like, earn more money, what's going to change? For me, it'll enable me to do everything else that I want to do in life. Versus for some people, it's like, oh, I can just buy more things. Well, great. Is that really going to fulfill you? And if not, what is going to fulfill you? And you have to make sure that these goals align with your vision and have such a strong, compelling, inner. It's like an inner Monday screamer at you. You know, it's Monday, baby, but like every single day and every single moment where you don't feel like working. It's really hard to explain, but once you find something that you truly vibe with, you'll really get to understand, like, how that goal can motivate you without you even having to pump yourself up. You just have to think about it. So once you have a solid list of all your short-term 12-week goals, then you're going to start to subdivide them into tactics and due dates. For instance, one of my 12-week goals is to stabilize my supply line, and in order to do that, one of my tactics is to nail printing. And even then, I would subdivide the printing thing even further. I have to print 20 hours a week. I have to make sure I print like X amount of figures a week. And then I can start to subdivide into my days. Like, okay, on Monday I'm printing this many, on Tuesday I'm printing this many. And you can start to schedule your stuff on there and really create a solid plan for your goal. Stabilizing my supply line is a very big goal and very broad and very general. So I could just keep working without like a really solid plan, and maybe I'll get there. But most likely, if I don't have a solid plan to go and execute, then it's really difficult to actually nail my goal by the time I want to nail it. Because you need to have measurable and quantifiable results that have to be done by a certain date. So, for instance, I need to print 200 figures by mid-November. In my 12-week year, that's like week 4 because I started in late October. So when you start to think about your goals, you have to say, okay, what do I need to do by when, and what does the number need to be? So that way you can tell if you're on track. And the way that you would do that is to, every single week, evaluate yourself. I usually do this on Sunday nights because that's the end of my week. If your week ends on a Friday, then do it on a Friday night. Evaluate yourself and score yourself based on all the goals that you had listed out and the due dates by which you wanted to have them due. Say, all right, how much of it did I get done this week? Did I print 20 hours this week? Did I go to the gym at least once this week? Did I read at least 20 minutes this week, you know? And you start to check, you have like a checklist of things that you've done. And these are things, by the way, that have to be very important to your 12-week year, and it shouldn't be just like a meaningless to-do list of like, oh, take out the trash, blah, blah, blah. You know, so you got to make sure that this list is about all the things that you want to do that'll propel your life forward. And then score yourself at the end of the week. Be honest with yourself. Don't sugarcoat it. If I only printed for 10 hours this week, I got a 50 out of 100. And that you don't have to think of it as like, I got an F. Like, it's not a traditional grade schooling system. It's just a number for you to look at. And then you evaluate that number. Why was the number so low? Why was it so high? What went wrong? What went right? And then how do you find out what you need to take out, remove, or add to your schedule for the next week? And then you right after you go ahead and evaluate yourself and you find out what went wrong, what went right, you can start to plan out your next week and make those changes and be adaptive on the fly. Because if you just kind of like go through the motions and just do what you're supposed to do, you're eventually going to come across a point where something slips up. And then if these things that slip you up keep happening over and over again, it eats away at your progress and you never get your goal done by a certain time. So you have to quickly identify, every single week, you have to quickly identify what are those things that are making me lag? What are those things that are holding me back, and how do I get around it? And the best way to do this is actually to get involved with other people. Like I said in the last podcast, community is really, really important. So what I'm doing with my family is we're all going through the 12-week year. And every Sunday night, we get together and we have a WAM. And a WAM stands for Weekly Accountability Meeting. So accountability, we'll go into that for a little bit. Accountability is not just like if you don't do something, you get punished. That's what everyone thinks accountability is, but accountability is actually a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle where it's like, I'm going to make sure that I do what I say I'm going to do by when I'm going to do it, because that'll increase my confidence and my ability to be able to fulfill on the things that I say I'm going to do. So in our weekly accountability meeting, we tell each other what we were supposed to do this week, what we had planned, what we actually did this week, and why things didn't get completed. And if everything got completed, that's either a sign that you're a god, or you need to add more things to your schedule, because once again, the 12-week year is supposed to stretch you, and you're supposed to find things where you're not accomplishing everything that you want to do, so that way you can adjust on the fly and then find a comfortable range where you're obviously doing more than you thought you would be doing, but at the same time you're getting enough done to feel like you're making those progress. So it's a really fine balance of stretching yourself and not getting too comfortable. And having the weekly accountability meeting oftentimes gives me insight as to what exactly is going wrong, in whatever it is that I'm trying to do. For instance, when I said I had more than just printing on my list, but because printing took so long, my sister was able to give me some recommendations on how I can adjust my time and what I should be focusing on to make sure that I'm accomplishing my goals and I'm not just pushing tasks further and further back, because that's procrastination and that's not good. So if you really want to get involved in the 12-week year, I highly recommend that you reach out, message me, probably on Discord. That's where I'll be most likely to respond, and I'll go ahead and get you started with the 12-week year. I'm not trying to push this like a sale thing, because I'm not an affiliate. I don't get any money from this. I just really think that if you were to follow this system, it'll really help you achieve your goals. This book is life-changing. I barely scratched the surface of all the information in this book, and all the information that comes with this system. So if you're interested in getting your goals set out, look up the 12-week year, Google it. If you're listening and you don't really see the book that I'm holding up in front of the camera right now, just look up the 12-week year by Brian P. Moran, and it'll probably be one of the first things that come up. It's a white book with red text and everything. So if you are, like I said, if you're really interested in getting your goals set out and you want to change your life, read this book. This book is honestly a life changer. Once again, I don't make any money off this. I just really hope that it gives value to you guys. And I'll keep you guys updated on my 12-week year. I'll be talking about it more and more on my Instagram story, because this is something that I've had a tendency in the past to say I'm going to do something by a certain date, and then I don't. And then that shakes my confidence in my ability to do things. So if I want to be able to be someone who can provide a service for you guys, I need to make sure that I get this done. So me publicly saying to everybody, hey, I'm going to be following this 12-week year, hold me accountable or help me stay accountable, that's going to be a huge domino that's going to help me get past this hurdle. So once again, having a community of people who you can report to and who you can talk to about this kind of thing and bounce ideas off each other, that's really important. So I hope that this podcast was really insightful and you started getting some ideas on how you can accomplish your goals. Hopefully using the 12-week year, like I said, it's a really good system. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, check out the book. It's going to be worth your time. If you don't have time to read it, get the audiobook. If you do have time to read it, buy it. It's worth every single penny, I promise you. So that about concludes it for this podcast. And remember, never settle. Always go above and beyond. That's what it means to be an aviator. Catch you later, guys.